Hi there, people. It's Joss here from the SI website. This is one of our latest graphics. I just want to walk you through it a little bit, explain this idea here, which is a pretty key idea to addressing complex challenges. And it's kind of captured in that famous quote by Einstein, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes learning about the nature of the system, and the last 5 minutes working on trying to address the problem. And that becomes particularly important with complex challenges. I'm going to explain it here, the difference between simple and complex challenges, and why we need to really shift our focus from a more solution-based emphasis when we're dealing with simpler problems to a more action inquiry, feedback, learning kind of approach when we're dealing with complex systems and wicked challenges. So for simple problems, there is a solution, and we can frame them as problems and solutions in that way. So changing a light bulb is an example of a simple problem. And because the problem is not part of the system, it's not a part of the electric grid, the problem itself, it's just the light bulb. So you can isolate that and you can analyze it and you can quite quickly understand the problem, and you don't actually need to understand the system or spend a lot of time digging into inquiry. So you can focus most of your time on the solution. And that's very different to complex challenges when they are actually systemic, right? So it's not the light bulb, it's actually the electric grid, for example, trying to decarbonize your energy system. You've actually got to think about the whole grid and all the actors involved and so forth. And in that scenario, you actually really have to shift from a solution-based thinking and placing most of your time and energy there to a learning-based approach, and primarily about trying to get the right framing, the right understanding of the system so that you can most effectively address that challenge. Because complex systems, there's so many different ways of looking at them, there's so many different perspectives, and you actually have to interact with the system and learn about it over time and get that feedback from it about what's the most effective way of looking at this, what's the most effective way of understanding the system. There is not necessarily one right answer in terms of how we should understand it and look at it. But there are more effective ways of framing it that will help us actually address this challenge. And that's why we need to be spending most of our time on the action learning, interacting with the system, reflecting upon that interaction, trying to build up a better model. And when we actually really get that deep understanding of the system and the best way of framing it, the solution will emerge and it'll be a lot simpler and a lot easier. So hopefully that explains the concept, and it's really difference between simple and complex challenges. In simpler ones, we can have a more solution-based approach to it, where we're really just focusing on the problem and addressing that, spending most of our time and energy there. More complex challenges, we need to shift to action-based learning approach and placing most of our emphasis, the 55 minutes on the framing, the action learning to get the right framing. And once we have that, actually the problem starts to emerge and becomes a lot simpler. We spend the last 5 minutes on that, as the famous quote from Einstein would say. Okay, going to leave it there. That was just a quick graphic. You can find more of the graphics on our website. I'll put a link in the chat and I'll drop back soon with some more.